All right, now that you have some background on hyperparameter tuning, making these different experiment templates, and checking all of this into version control, let's start looking at some of the MLOps tools that are specifically used to track experiments. So one tool that you'll run into a lot as you work through different ML engineering projects, or maybe as you just start looking at more MLOps tools to add to your team's, well, toolbox. So MLFlow is a Python API that has a lot of built-in interfaces with those popular Python libraries that we talked about earlier. So MLflow hooks into sklearn, it hooks into TensorFlow, PyTorch, Keras, really all of the big commonly used machine learning Python packages. So you don't have to do a lot of upfront configuration because MLflow handles all of that under the hood for you. The only thing you have to do is add a little bit of MLflow specific Python to your experiment templates, but it will track every experiment that you run with that particular script. It'll record the hyperparameters you use, some data around metrics that are returned for your experiment, and even the model. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at how you run experiments with MLflow. So I'm going to switch over here to VS Code like usual, and I'm gonna go to this new project directory and open our experiment tracking.py file. So in here you'll notice this is just a little toy machine learning model experiment. So we're getting some data directly from sklearn. So splitting that into our train and test data sets, and then we're going to use this random forest regressor as the algorithm to train our model. So where MLflow comes in is right here. Every time that we execute this Python script, this mlflow.autolog method will be called, and it's gonna basically take a snapshot of the state of everything when you ran this particular experiment. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that works. And we'll start by running just this Python script. It's in my new project directory. It's called experiment tracking. And we'll wait a little bit for this to execute. You might see different little warning and error messages when you do run your Python script using MLflow. Sometimes there's some version differences between the packages that you use, and it's always good to address those differences, but since this is just a little toy project, we're going to let those hang out because they don't actually impact the experiment. So we've run this experiment, and now I'll go ahead and clear my terminal and run this unique MLflow UI command. So MLflow gives you a visual way to interact with the different experiments you've run, which is pretty nice when you need to compare experiments and you get into the situation where you need to show other people the metrics around your experiments so that y'all can discuss the next steps. So you'll notice that it spun up this little web app running on localhost 5000. So we'll switch over there and look at, well, this. And this is what MLflow looks like on localhost. So you can see all of the experiments that you've run, when they were run, how long it took, the source file that they came from, and the resulting model. So you'll notice MLflow is handling a lot of that experiment tracking for you. We already know the source file and the model that is associated with each experiment. So let's take a look at the experiment we just ran. And you'll notice that we have quite a bit of information just for this particular experiment. So one of the first things that I want to point out is that each experiment has a unique name and it has a timestamp, which may be pretty important to you. And it also has an associated git commit hash. So you'll be able to find that code that you ran for this experiment just using that hash. And you can add a description if there was something special about this experiment. But I want to point out this parameters drop down. So this is where you can come and see all of the hyperparameters and the values that were used with them for this experiment. So as we start doing some examples of hyperparameter tuning, you'll notice that these values will change with each experiment we run. So MLflow is a very powerful tool when it comes to machine learning in general, not even just in the MLOps world, but as an ML engineer, this tool is really helpful with tracking those experiments versus trying to keep track of everything across notebooks, zip files, and spreadsheets. So this is a way to help keep your experiments organized and to help them be shareable across your team. And then you're also able to see the metrics that were associated with the experiment. So this is incredible information. You'll be able to directly compare these different experiments just by looking here in this MLflow UI. So you can already see we've got the mean absolute error, the mean square error, the R2 score, we've got a training score, and we have all of this data for each experiment just because of this one line of code here. So mlflow.autolog is how we're able to generate all of this data because again MLflow hooks into that Python library that we're using to train our machine learning model. And it has a couple of tags if you need those. Maybe you need to customize some things. And then down here you can see the actual artifacts from the experiment that was run. So you can check out this conda.yaml. You have a pickle file with that model, and then you have your environment. You have all of the requirements needed for this model, and you just have everything nicely bundled right here in this MLflow interface. So let's run one more experiment. This is kind of our manual way. So we'll update our number of estimators. We'll change the max depth to something. Let's go big. Let's say 35, just because. And we'll increase the max features to 10, just to see what that does to our metrics. So I'll go ahead and stop MLflow UI, and that's just with Command C or Control C, and I'll arrow up and run this script again. So we're generating a new experiment, and we've got that experiment. So now I'll run MLflow UI, and this will start up my local server again. And we can come over here and go to experiments, and you'll see this upbeat squid that was created just a bit ago. So this was that experiment we just ran, and we'll take a look at those parameters. You see our max depth has changed, max features is changed, and our in estimators is updated. And if we look at the difference, those hyperparameters actually made a significant change in our metrics. Look at the training score. We went from 0.83 to 0.92. That's why we do this hyperparameter training. But this is how you can approach experiment tracking with MLFlow.